Hi, I'm Teresa and welcome to my channel. Today I'm very excited to be discussing Heartstopper, the TV series that's just released. So I am a massive fan of the graphic novel, so I have been very highly anticipating this series, and I'm so pleased to say I absolutely adored it. So I wanted to sit down and talk to you about it for a bit because I just have so many things I want to say about it. This will be mostly spoiler free. I will be talking about the show and referencing some scenes, but I'll try and keep it like as vague as possible. I will also briefly mention like how it adapts to the book, so there may be some book spoilers, especially as I talk about setting things up for future books. Nothing major, but more just it will deal with this theme, like that kind of thing. But yeah, mostly spoiler free. You should be able to watch this video without getting spoiled at all. So to begin with, I should probably give a summary of Heartstopper for anyone not familiar. So this is a graphic novel series by Alice Oseman. There are currently 4 volumes, though a 5th one is on its way, I believe due out next year. And this follows Charlie, who is openly gay at his all-boys school. And the new term begins and he's assigned to sit next to Nick Nelson in his form group. And Nick is a year older than him, he's one of the rugby lads, he's popular, but he and Charlie really just hit it off and they become really good friends, and then this develops into something more. And you follow them both navigating their relationship, Nick coming to terms with not being straight, him navigating his friend group and their expectations for him, lots of good things like that. There's an amazing friend group, and I actually loved that in the show you got to see this more than in the comic books, so I will be talking about that a bit later. And it's just this overall lovely, wholesome, joyful show and book series as well. And it does deal with some heavier themes. You know, I've mentioned the coming out, there's some homophobia, and later in the graphic novels you deal with Charlie's mental health and as he develops anorexia. And these are all just handled so sensitively with so much care and done in such a way that the show doesn't lose, or the books don't lose, their overall joyfulness. Like, they are just such a source of queer joy. It is unbelievable. I love them so much, and I just love getting to see this translated onto screen. I thought it like translated very well to screen. I thought it worked so well, and I just loved it so much. And yes, me and my friend, who is straight, who had never heard of Heartstopper, who doesn't read, we sat down to watch one episode the day it released because I was like, I need to watch it immediately. And then suddenly it was midnight and we'd watched all of it. It was just so good, and like, you needed more. It was so lovely. I had the best time watching it, and she really enjoyed it as well. And it was so good. But honestly, like, this is the show that I wish I had had as a teenager. As a teenager beginning to understand my identity, to come to terms with it, to have these so openly queer characters, so joyful, especially when you also have Tara and Darcy, who are lesbians in the show and who are so proudly lesbian. Like, that would have meant so much to me, who was figuring out my sexuality, who was beginning to realize I was a lesbian but wasn't comfortable with it. It would have meant so much, and it meant so much to me now, 20 years old, pretty comfortable in my sexuality. So I'm just like so glad it exists for kids who are in what was my position, who felt like that, and now that they have this lovely example of just joyfulness and taking time to figure out your identity and being proud of that identity, like, I'm so happy for them. I'm very jealous too, but I'm so happy for them. And back to what I was saying about Heartstopper managing to be so lighthearted and joyful while also exploring some heavier topics. There was homophobia in this, but it was handled so sensitively. It was never felt like the scenes were done for shock value or anything, though there were a couple scenes that were quite jarring. And I think it also, Heartstopper does this amazing job of exploring it in British high schools, British secondary schools, which felt like a lot truer to my experience than some YA novels I'll see set in the States, as well as being within an all-girls and an all-boys school, which is where the books are set, the show is set, and also just like coming out in that environment and existing as a queer person in this environment and how that works. And I just thought it was handled so nicely, and as I was saying, like, the Britishness, like, it felt so much like my experience. And it wasn't just the homophobia, but also just like the way they spoke, some of the jokes, some of the language. They had sports day, and Tara and Darcy had like little dots like that over their eyes with in like paint. Every girl at my school on sports day did that, so I saw that and I was like, holy shit, like they've got the British secondary school experience down. And it was just nice to see when so much queer media, for young adults especially, is so American. It was just nice to see something that felt a bit like more my experience. And they were also so clearly like teenagers, and I think that they did a good job of presenting this, like all the characters as teenagers, as like I think Charlie's 14 at the beginning. Like they all message on Instagram, and there's such a big focus on messaging in the series, and you see them typing, you see them hesitating before they send, you see them typing and then deleting. And I just think that shows how much teenagers and young people nowadays communicate through text, and like the way that we do it, and I just really enjoyed that. And just the humor, the little gay jokes, all of that was so very teenagery, the angst, the drama, like I just loved it so much. I thought it fit so well with these characters with their age group, and I just really enjoyed that, because you get so many shows nowadays about teenagers played by actors who are way over the age of a teenager, or they just like don't get to being a teenager. Like they should all be set in college rather than high school. In terms of the adaptation, it was so true to the graphic novels. There are like scenes that are taken directly from the novels in terms of the dialogue, the script, the like framing of the shot. It's so completely exactly the graphic novel. Like as I said, it translates so well to screen. And I also really liked all the little touches they had that kind of harkened back to the original medium, to the graphic novel. Like they had like little animated drawings going around the characters in like tense moments or romantic moments, like little hearts or little leaves or whatever, and it was so sweet. And they also had like two scenes kind of like juxtaposed like that together, and it was like a comic book panel, and it worked so well to kind of be like, this is the story's original medium and we're going to keep true to that. And they, as I said, they had so much dialogue just lifted directly from the graphic novel, and it just worked so well. And I think its faithfulness as an adaptation really goes to show what can happen when the creator is involved, the writer of the book is involved. And it worked out really well. It translated so well to screen. Like there's little things that they changed, things they added, and I'll talk about some of the major things later. But all in all, it remains so true to the story, so true to the characters, and it just worked amazingly. So the next theme I wanted to talk about is coming out. So this is a major theme in Heartstopper, because Nick, Charlie's love interest, is just beginning to discover his identity, and he does a lot of soul searching and Google searching to figure himself out, to really discover whether he's queer or not and what label suits him. And this is such a major part of the show, major part of his character, and I just thought it was handled so beautifully in the show. I thought it was just very true to the kind of experience of discovering your sexuality, and then him beginning to come out to people and having all these doubts about coming out was also very nice to see, very natural as well. And just I loved that Charlie never once pressured him. You find a lot when there's one openly gay member of a couple and one who's just beginning to understand their sexuality, who's not out, there's like some pressure to come out. Not in this case, and I just love that. I really appreciated seeing that, especially because Charlie was outed the year before and received quite harsh treatment because of it, and you know that because of that he knows how bad it is to come out before you're ready, and he would never put Nick in that situation, and I just appreciated that so much, getting to see Nick come into himself and accept himself on his own terms, in his own time, and then begin coming out to people. And it's also like coming out isn't the end goal of being gay. Like you don't have to ever have this big coming out, like I haven't, and I just love that. And it's just like so beautiful. I love this show so much. And while we're talking about that, the scene with Nick and his mum towards the end, it's so good. It's just like, oh my god, I love it, like tearing up. Love it. But yes, on to the characters, which is my kind of next major section of this video. I have a plan. I'm not really sticking to it because I get sidetracked, but on to the characters. So first of all, I want to talk about Charlie. And Joe Locke, who plays Charlie, is just Charlie. Like, he fits the character so, so, so well. And I just loved seeing Charlie brought to screen so well, so faithfully, I suppose, to the graphic novel. Like, the whole show is so faithful to the novel, but like Charlie's character especially, I just really loved seeing that. I really loved that the show is kind of beginning to hint at what Charlie's going to go through in the later seasons, if they get them, fingers crossed, with his mental health and his eating disorder. Like, there's points where he turns down food and that kind of thing, and I think it's just so good to show that eating disorders don't come out of nowhere. They don't just start suddenly. It's often a gradual process that lots of people around you and you yourself won't even notice. So I just enjoyed seeing that kind of beginning to be set up. And I'm just so scared for if we do get later seasons and I have to see that, because I'm going to be hurting for him so badly. My poor Charlie. But yes, I adored seeing him brought to screen. There were so many like lovely heartfelt moments with his character. There's one where he hugs Tori and they have this conversation and it's just so good. And I just really, really enjoyed it. My only thing I would say is that Joe Locke's acting isn't always the best. It's sometimes just a bit too awkward. Like, to some extent, it's meant to be awkward, you know, it's like first proper crush, first proper relationship. It's an awkward time as a teenager, but like it's just a bit too awkward at times and it's just a bit cringy. But that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy Joe Locke as Charlie. It doesn't mean I didn't enjoy the show. It's just my like one little gripe about it, but I very much enjoyed it anyway. And Nick, I just loved Nick, and Kit was just the perfect casting. Like, I cannot believe he originally auditioned for Charlie when he's the literal embodiment of Nick Nelson. Like, it's just the best casting. I'm so glad that we got him as our Nick, and he is such a brilliant actor. Like, oh my god, he was so good throughout. I just loved watching all of his scenes. He was just so good. I've spoken a lot about his coming out journey, which is really his kind of major plot arc in this first season, and it's just so nice to see again. And like the emotion when he's doing his Google searches and everything, it's just so good. And his kind of confusion was so palpable, and like just not knowing yourself, it's so scary and so confusing, and he just translated that so well to screen, and I loved seeing it. And I also loved all of his scenes with Nellie when she's just like in his lap and everything, and oh, it's so cute. I love Nellie. I'm so glad they had so many Nellie scenes. Nellie being his dog, in case anyone's not familiar. But she's so cute. And then like Nick and Charlie together, their chemistry, their dynamic, so good. I really, really enjoyed it. Like, especially the kind of final scene with them is so adorable. I just loved it so much. Like, I see pictures or videos of it come up on my Twitter timeline. I'm just like, ooh, every time. It's so cute. I love their relationship. I loved the kind of slow development, Charlie giving him time. The misunderstandings were so easily resolved, and there's just this amazing layer of trust between them, and I just loved it so much. Next up is Cara and Darcy, who are our lesbian characters. They're friends with Nick and Charlie, and I loved them so much. So much. Like, in the graphic novels, they don't really play a huge role until the second one, so it was so lovely getting to see them in this first season and have their own storylines, and I just really enjoyed it. I loved how proud they were to say they were lesbians, so joyful about it, and it made me so emotional, because I don't know what I'd have done if I had that representation on screen when I was still struggling to accept as a lesbian, and struggling with that word in particular and just the connotations it has. To see these young woman be so fiercely proud of being a lesbian. Like, I don't know what I'd have done. It just meant so much to me now, and I loved it. There's also a moment with Tara after she comes out. She has some quite like negative reaction towards her, and there's a moment where she's crying and she says, you know, how like uncertain she feels about being lesbian, how insecure in it. And I just really felt that. I really felt for her, and it's probably the scene that made me the most emotional and stuck with me the most from the show. And I just loved it. Tao and Elle, amazing, loved them. Tao's hair is a fucking devastation, but we can move past it because Elle looks good enough for the both of them. And I loved their little friendship, and then beginning to realise that there might be something more. I'm glad that they've not rushed anything and they're staying true to the comics in that respect. And also I just love that they had a trans actress for Elle. Like, it's the bare minimum, but with the state of transphobia in the UK right now, seeing a main character trans woman played by a trans woman in a TV show aimed at teenagers in the UK is so amazing. And I'm just so happy to see that on screen. I love it. And oh, I just loved their little dynamic, and oh, it's so cute. And then we have Isaac and Imogen, who were the new characters introduced for the TV series. So Isaac is kind of replacing Alid, who is Charlie's friend in graphic novels, but he then goes in to be a main character in Radio Silence, Alice's other novel. And there'd be some like continuity issues if they had two Alid lasts, if they ever got a Radio Silence adaptation with a different studio, so they just axed his character and replaced him with Isaac. Isaac is very bookish. He's always seen reading a book. At one point he's reading Radio Silence, which I loved. And also just, I've seen Alice confirm on Twitter that he's going to be Arrow Ace, like they were kind of giving that hint in this season. I just love that so much. I'm so excited for that to hopefully be explored in season 2. And Imogen. I loved Imogen. This is an unpopular opinion because I have seen so much hate for this girl. Like, bad level hate. And I made a tweet about it because I just couldn't stand it. And she's literally just a girl with a crush. Like, she's a 15-year-old girl. She handles everything so well. Like, I really enjoyed her character. She has some like amazing, like, the actress has some amazing like comedic timing and everything. Like, there's one line with Tara and Darcy and Elle that really cracked me up, and I loved it so much. I loved Imogen. I'm really hoping we get to see more from her in season 2 and they've not just introduced her to be like a conflict in season 1, then they axe her character. Like, I want her to get her own storyline. I think that could be so fun. And yeah, all of them together as well, their friendship, I loved. And I'm so glad we got to see more of this in season 1, whereas in the graphic novels it begins in the 2nd volume. And I just really appreciated that, seeing this big, mostly queer friend group. It was so good. And I loved it so much. Like, they all just get on so well together, and I just loved all of their scenes and everything together. It was so good. And yes, that has been my thoughts on the Heartstopper series. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to recommend some books that I think you should pick up now that you've watched it or read the novels and you want more. But to kind of wrap up my thoughts on the series overall, amazing, show-stopping, brilliant, never been done before, all of that good stuff. I just loved it so much. I hope you can tell that from how much I'm smiling and repeating how much I loved it, because it was just so damn good. I'm going to rewatch it again and again. It's definitely like a new comfort show. I'm so excited to hopefully get season 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and just see this whole story come to life on Netflix and just get all this amazing queer rep, and then also Charlie's mental health journey on screen and everything. Like, it's gonna be good. I'm very excited. I really hope we get a season 2. But yes, on to the books. First of all, if you haven't already read the graphic novels, read them. They are amazing. I love them so much, and they are free on, I think, Webtoons and Tapas. You can find all the links on Alice's website and social media. They do still benefit from you reading them on there, so like, go for it. I know the graphic novels can be a bit pricey, And then from there, Solitaire, Nick and Charlie this winter, and Radio Silence a bit kind of link with the graphic novels. Solitaire follows Charlie's sister Tori and is set after Heartstopper. This winter, Nick and Charlie, a little like novellas set in the same world, following the same characters. And then Radio Silence, as I mentioned, follows Alan, Charlie's friend from the graphic novels. And then you also have I Was Born for This, which I adored. It's this like amazing look at fandom from both an inside perspective in the fandom, but also as the band who has the fandom and what they think of it, and just a good story of friendship again and everything, and like meeting your idols and them not being who they're meant to be and everything. It's very good. And then Loveless. I adored Loveless. It's my favourite Alice Oseman novel. This follows Georgia, who goes to university determined to fall in love, but then instead discovered that she's Arrow Ace. And I know it's a very, very personal book for Alice, and I just thought it was written so well. I love the friendship in it. Alice Oseman does friendship so, so, so well. And yeah, I just loved it. Next up, I want to recommend Running with Lines by Gillian Winters. This is this amazing, warm, loving YA contemporary novel, and it follows Sebastian, who is his high school star goalie, and he's on this like very queer inclusive team, and it's wonderful. And every summer they go to this camp to kind of work on their skills. But when his estranged ex-best friend Amir shows up and starts causing problems, Sebastian resolves to do his duty to his team and befriend him again and sort out their problems and get Amir to play on the team properly. But of course, all these lovely days on the pitch together begin to develop their relationship into something more. And I just adored this book when I read it. I need to reread it and read the rest of Gillian's books. It's so warm and loving, and having this very inclusive team and just amazing friendship really reminds me of Alice Oseman's books, and I just adored it. And also Sebastian does deal with some like body image issues, which you begin to see with Charlie, and I just enjoyed seeing this from like a male perspective, because I think in media, anorexia and eating disorders and body image issues, they're always very much presented as female problems, girl problems, teenage girl problems particularly. So seeing it from a boy was really great in both Heartstopper and Running with Lions, and I just really enjoyed it. Next up, I want to recommend The Passing Playbook by Isaac Fitzsimons. I read this book last year and fell in love. It's so, so gorgeous and comforting. It feels like a warm hug. And this follows a trans teenager who joins a new school, and he decides that because he faced some very horrible bullying in his old school after he came out, he's going to just pass. And this is complicated when he joins the football team and discovers that there's a rule that he needs to show his birth certificate, but with the F on his birth certificate, he can't play, and he has to choose between, you know, staying on the sidelines and keeping his identity a secret, or fighting for his right to play, all while falling in love with one of the other members of the team. And it's just this lovely, comforting, warm story. It doesn't focus so much on the transphobia he faces or this law and him fighting it. It's very much more a romance-based book, which I loved. I loved just getting to see a trans teenager be happy, and it was so very, very good. Next up, I want to recommend Some Girls Do by Jennifer Duggan. I have not read this one yet. I will. I've been very highly anticipating it, but never got round to it. But this follows an openly gay track star who falls for a closeted bisexual teen beauty queen with a penchant for fixing up old cars. So, you know what? There's some similarities there with an openly gay main character falling for a closeted bisexual character. There's some sports aspects and all of that, and I feel I've not read this author's books yet, but I want to. But I feel like they've just got such like a warm contemporary feeling, and that's what I'm going for with these recommendations, because that's what I get from Heartstopper, and I just really want to read this book, and I think it would fit Heartstopper fans perfectly. Finally, I want to recommend Ophelia After All by Raquel Marie. This is another one I still haven't read, but really, really want to. This follows a teen girl who's navigating kind of friendship drama at the end of high school and discovering her queerness. And it's also got such like an amazing friend group from what I've heard from everyone's reviews. And I feel like Ophelia's journey with beginning to understand her sexuality and come out to herself is very similar to Nick's, so if you were enjoying that from Heartstopper, you might enjoy it in Ophelia After All. And yes, those are the books I think you should read if you loved Heartstopper, both the graphic novels and the TV series. It's just lots of lovely, warm, fun, queer contemporary novels. I hope that you pick some of them up and enjoy them. And yes, that is the end of the video. So as always, I'll have my social media linked down below if you want to keep up with me elsewhere. And I'll link these books that I've mentioned if you want to pick them up for yourself. And yes, thank you very, very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you in another video soon. Bye!